Hello, and welcome in to another episode of Why So Sidious, a Nerd Podcast. Thank you for joining us here. I am your host, David, and here with me tonight is my co host, Jeremy. We are not joined by our third tonight, but we press on because that's what we do. Tonight, we will be covering the fourth episode of the second season of The Lord of the Rings of Power, titled Eldest. Before we get into that, as always, follow us on social media, X, TikTok, Instagram at Why So Sidious Pod. Check out some of our recent episodes. Again, we have Grant Morrison's Animal Man comic review out there with returning guest Yoo-Hoo comic review, Who is Red Hulk, Novice Nerd, and the coverage of the Rings of Power episode 1 through 3. We covered the premiere recently, so be sure to check that out. And another round of Nerd Therapy, which is always a fan favorite, so that's going to be floating around out there. Go ahead and check that out. Caleb and Jeremy had a fun episode together with that one, so be sure to check it. Outside of that, I guess moving forward, we're going to continue to cover this. We'll continue to cover some comic books here and there. There's not a whole lot coming up, though. I mean, we have Agatha dropping at the end of the month, but I have zero interest in that. I don't know if Love wants to take over. JD, are you going to be watching that when that comes out, by the way?
I'll be watching it. Yeah, I was just going to say we're going to try to have Kurono Comics back on to do some kind of Penguin comic leading up to that show. So you can look out for that one. There's not a lot of great Penguin stuff out there, but we're going to find something and cover it.
Straight up. And he was good. I enjoyed listening to you guys last time he joined us. He's got some insightful takes there, and big Batman fan as well, it seems. So, yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah, he was solid.
Yeah. And yeah, we don't have anything movies coming for a while, so we'll just, creative episodes, which is always fun. We're covering the nerd news, we're doing our nerd therapies, our hypotheticals, our comic reviews, so be sure to keep checking in. Let's get into this episode. So this is more of a kind of loose format episode here. I don't have much of a recap for you, so just spoiler warnings again. If you haven't seen the episode, hop on out of here. Shouldn't be in here, but if you have, feel free to join us. Essentially, this episode kicks off with Elrond and Galadriel forming a squad of elves to head over to Celebrimbor and make sure that Sauron hasn't made it over there. They go on a little journey, kind of like a Harfoot journey, except like interesting to watch and fun. And they make their way over and encounter some Barrow wights, which is a crazy piece of lore there, which isn't exactly in the Second Age, but it is now, so get over it. We talked about that on our kind of Rings of Power episode leading into this too, so we knew they were coming. We saw them in the trailers. Unfortunately, we got more of the Harfoots. They discover another halfling group called the what was it? The Stores? I think it was the Stores.
It's immemorable.
Yeah, it's not super important. They talk about a prophecy of the Shire, essentially, which was pretty funny. They called it something else. They called it again, not very memorable because I can't remember. The Suzat, that's what they called it. But it sounded like the Shire, like rivers flowing, a place where halflings can live in peace. The ground's so soft they can dig holes in the ground and live in it in a month time. Like it was literally just the Shire. So super important that they got that in there. We see Arondir and Isildur traveling with some random waddling woman until they run into some ents. So we get the ents coming back into the world of Middle-earth for us there. First time we've seen them since the Return of the King, obviously. And we got a mud snake, little interesting little creature there. And then at the end there, we get Galadriel and the elf crew running into a crew of orcs. Galadriel hangs back, gets into a fight with them, and ends up being captured by Adar. It was a pretty interesting ending there, but yeah. So not. Oh, and I'm sorry, I totally skipped over. We have the stranger who runs into Tom Bombadil. So this was a very interesting scene, especially if you are familiar with Tom Bombadil and the lore there. It was very interesting. It was a risky move to bring him in and do, but yeah, we got Tom Bombadil in here as well. So let's just get into it. Dude, we opened up, by the way, with the elves, Galadriel recruiting these elves, the two archers and a swordsman or something like that. And it was pretty dope. We got the classic wide cinematic shots of people running on the peak of a mountain. Like there's a few different scenes. It was like, yeah, all right, this is a little nod to Fellowship there. So I enjoyed that. I thought it looked beautiful. Sorry, real quick. Overall, what were your thoughts on this episode overall?
I thought it was I thought it was okay. You know, it was a little slow. The things that I liked was the adventures, the elves going to look for Sauron. That was fun. Things I didn't like, Elrond is still pissing me off. He's really annoying. Like, dude, just I get that you don't trust Galadriel, but it doesn't mean every single decision she makes you have to go against, and it's just really bugging me.
Right.
I
Yeah.
liked the seeing the Ents. I really liked the design of the Ents, even though I'm not really invested in that side of the story. Like Arendir, I really like his action and stuff, but I'm not really invested in his character. And a seal door, not so much. Even though I'm excited to see where it goes, knowing where it
Yeah.
goes from the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring. The Stranger, I'm really excited to have him meet another wizard that is going to teach him some wizardry, as what it sounds like. And we got some cool hints towards this dark wizard, which I'm assuming is Saruman, and, you know, leading to his inevitable some kind of fight with Sauron. So
Mm.
there's some stuff I liked. It was, you know, a little bit slow, but it is episode 4, so we're not really expecting fireworks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that was the same for me. It was a bit slow. I enjoyed it more. I kind of rehashed it a little bit before we hopped on here, and I liked it a bit more. Few really goofy aspects of it. A few aspects I just don't, like. I don't care about the Isildur storyline, like you were
Yeah.
mentioning, and the whole thing with the girl, the captive who they keep letting go, and she keeps turning on them, and they're flirting, all that stuff, bro. I have no interest in it, and it's the same plot line that involves Theo to an extent. So I really have no interest in it. Thankfully, he only comes in at the end there, but yeah, they had a couple cool action scenes. The snake thing was short lived, but it was like okay, that was unique. A little mud snake thing they cut themselves out of from inside of it. But yeah, it just doesn't bring a lot to the table. So they're trying to track down Adar at this point now, I believe. So they're going to be brought into the main conflict. It looks like, but a little slow. Yeah.
Yeah, I did like the creatures, like the zombie creatures and the snake mud thing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that felt very Middle Earth and yet new at the same
Yes.
time. So that was fun to explore that kind of stuff. Not a ton of screen time there, but that was fun. I also cannot stand the whole Nori thing. Any little side quests that are going on, I just kind of skip forward, to be honest.
It's just bad. Like, um, sorry. What do you think of the elf plot, and them heading out on their journey?
That's my favorite part. You know, I really like the direct storylines. I like getting down to business there. And like I said, Elrond is really annoying me, but I love the journey. And I'm surprised you said such a specific thing about the shot of them just running across a mountain because it totally reminded me of like Legolas and Gimli going and looking
Yeah.
for the hobbits and stuff like that. So I was like, that's Lord of the Rings, baby. I'll watch them traverse some mountains all day. But the ending was awesome. I liked that action scene with Galadriel at the end. That was badass. But
Mm-hmm.
again, Elrond is like, oh, don't be fooled. She's not trying to save us. She's trying to save the ring. I'm like, dude, you're an asshole. Get out of here. Like,
Dude, so I'm half and half with that. I think he was obnoxious this episode. I think this was the episode I liked him the least in. Because of that. Yeah, every single thing, no matter what she says, he goes, well, I'm not listening to the ring. It's like, okay, but sometimes, like, she is your lieutenant, like you keep saying. So is she doesn't have a voice anymore because she's wearing the ring? So I get the skepticism, the hesitancy with stuff, but, like, you can't just discount every single thing she says because of it. Um, Dude, I want to say those elves, the costume design for the elves look dope. I love the threads Galadriel's wearing when they go out on this quest. Like, I don't know, it just looks really high quality. It looks elvish. I loved how they were looking. And like you said, there were 3 or 4 things in this episode where it was like this feels Lord of the Rings. It definitely this has that feel. I feel like we are back watching in this world. So that's important getting that in there.
the orcs looked great too.
Mm-hmm.
In the end there, they looked really good, and I liked the banter there. And yeah, that action scene was awesome. But just the design for the orcs was really on point.
Yeah, no, they look great. They killed it with them. And the Barrow wights looked great. So I really thought this was a cool aspect. Again, people are upset because they don't come into the third age typically. The Witch King of Angmar is the one who resurrects them for a purpose. And again, that was in the Third Age. The Witch King isn't around at this point. The Nine aren't around at this point, so people are freaking out about that. But I thought it was cool, bro. I thought it was a cool fantasy aspect. Again, the CGI I think looked really good for them. And we also found out that's what killed the messengers. We were talking about last episode of did Sauron kill those messengers? And then it was like a flashback of him thinking about when he killed them. But no, because they were being dragged off with chains. So now we know, okay, that was the Barrow wights who wiped them out because we saw those chains hook them and dragging them away at one point.
Nice.
So I think instead of the Witch King resurrecting them to protect an area, in this, Sauron resurrected them at this to block people from getting to Eregion so he has more time. He's buying time. He destroyed the bridge, and now he's resurrected these Barrow wights to slow down the elves. So I thought it was cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's so dumb to get mad at something so silly as when you might bring in these Barrow wights. Like, who cares? It's not like they're not that significant as far as the big story goes. Just like put them in there. It's fun. That's kind of Easter eggy, even if, sorry, they're not in the Third Age. They're in the Second Age. Like, who cares?
Yeah, they barely had any effect. They're in the book. They're in the Fellowship, like for 2 pages. I mean, it's very brief. Sam and Frodo and them all run into them. But yeah, I don't. Who cares, man? They use them pretty cool. So
do Sam and Frodo have to kill them with the weapons they were buried with? Also,
I think, if I remember correctly, Tom Bombadil actually saves them, and he does it by telling them, like, they say a certain thing, like a rhyme almost that is like an anti-curse to the Barrow wights that sends them off. And then in the Barrow Downs is where they find the elvish swords they have for the rest of the quest. So when we see the hobbits with those little elvish sword dagger things in the books, they get those from the Barrow Downs after Tom Bombadil saves them.
Interesting. So Tom was in the Fellowship book?
Yep.
Wow,
he had
okay.
a whole song and dance. Literally, he sang for half of his chapter. It was just singing, which they didn't overkill it with his use in this episode. I was a little worried because he's a super goofy character, bro. He's like an omnipotent dude who wears these bright yellow rain boots, and he sings to speak, and he's just a super goofy but almost all-powerful character. So, yeah, he was in the Fellowship briefly. I think he's in the Silmarillion a bit. And he lives by the Barrow Downs during the Fellowship. So now I'm wondering how close the Stranger and Nori are to Galadriel and Elrond. I don't know if he's just living in a different area in this show or what, but anyway. I thought it was a cool aspect to bring in. Okay, there was one really bad part. And it's when they're fighting them, and like you just said, Elrond brings up the fact that you have to kill them with the weapons that they were buried with. You could have let him kill the Barrow wight and like let it breathe for a bit instead of during his finishing stroke. According to lore, if you were to kill a Barrow, it was like, what? Was this a nerd video of like somebody breaking down the episode? Like right when he kills him, according to lore. It's like, okay, that just came off not very genuine to me. It sounded pretty damn goofy, but just forced exposition. He could have said that way smoother. I don't know.
Everything Elrond says in this show comes across goofy to me. Freaking nerd.
Well, yeah, that one didn't help. That's for sure, dude. That was, and it appears something has awoken them. No, someone. Like it's just a super overused cliche. So there was like back-to-back sequences at the end of that Barrow wights thing where I was like, that was pretty corny, but whatever. Not a big deal. Real quick, let's talk about Tom Bombadil. So the Stranger wanders up to this little area where somebody's obviously living, and it's Tom sitting there singing, and he doesn't really seem to pay any mind to the Stranger and says, oh, I see you found the goat. The Stranger doesn't know what the hell's going on, gets eaten up by a tree. And it's interesting because Tom walks up to the tree, and to let him out, he like pats it and he says, you should not be waking, eat dirt, drink deep. And that's exactly, there's a deleted scene in the Two Towers where Merry and Pip get like eaten by a tree, and Treebeard comes over and stops them. I think it's in the extended edition. And he like hits the tree and says, hey, let them go. Like, and he says that exact line though. He tells the tree, you should not be weaking, eat dirt, eat dirt. I don't think that's right. Eat deep, drink deep. I don't remember the line, but it was exactly what Treebeard said, and I think it was straight out of the Fellowship too, from what Tom Bombadil says. But it was definitely an Easter egg quote there. Easter egg. Good Lord, David, wake up. But it was interesting. So I How did it work for you, not knowing Tom Bombadil that much? How'd you like this whole interaction?
At first, I was so bored with it until they started getting into like, oh, this dude's like a wizard, and he's starting to talk about this dark wizard. So that's making me think about Saruman, and then he's talking about facing off with Sauron, and then he's talking about, learning to be a wizard, learning to use your staff as long as you're worthy, blah blah blah. So I'm really excited for the stranger to meet kind of like a teacher, so we can kind of expedite his evolution of powers and get to the character we really want to see him become.
Yeah. Dude, so, man, yeah, it was very interesting the way he was talking with them. And I don't, at this point, man, there was a theory I read, because the Dark Wizard, obviously, again, it feels like they're taking notes from Sauron. He even speaks like him. The Stranger obviously seems to be Gandalf. And in the Third Age, there's the two polar opposites, essentially, by the end of it. There's the evil wizard Saruman, and there's Gandalf, the Grey Pilgrim, Gandalf the White, the guy on the good side. And before them, though, there were two blue wizards that Tolkien didn't really write a lot about. But we do know there are two unnamed wizards out there. Blue wizards instead of gray or white. And I believe that they were around the Second Age, and one of them was good and one of them was evil. So I'm almost kind of hoping that maybe these two characters are those blue wizards, and they're just kind of the archetypes that Gandalf and Saruman were created after when they come into the Third Age. So maybe this is like those two blue wizards. I don't know. There's a lot of theories going around out there, though, which is cool. You always like to see that in a show, and people speculating and talking about it and whatnot. But yeah, I'm still not sure who the stranger and this dark wizard is right now. But it could be a number of things.
At this point, I'm sold on it being Gandalf just because of the staff. Yeah. With this season showing the whole staff thing, I'm like, that's Gandalf.
Well, yeah, and he dropped so many lines in the finale that were like straight up lines that Gandalf has said in the trilogy before. I mean, a lot of the wizards do have staffs, and they have confirmed already he's an Istar, which is another word for wizard. So we do know. But yeah, I think they just dropped so many Gandalf hints already that it would be a big surprise if it wasn't him. But yeah. I hope it's not Sauron. I hope it's something else.
Well, that, like, thinking it was Saruman, that fell off the table for me when he started talking about the Dark Wizard. And I don't think they would introduce other wizards just for the popularity pull leading towards Lord of the Rings. I really think they're just doing a Gandalf thing for the audience.
Yeah, I would, again, I'd be more surprised if they unveiled it and his name wasn't unveiled to be Mithrandir or Gandalf or any of the other names he has. But
is Mithrandir is like a previous Gandalf name?
I think it's just the first name he was actually given by the elves.
Oh, that's funny, especially after their conversation about, like, you should know your name. Like, I can't be given a name. You just know it.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that was... Oh, yeah, so Mithrandir in the Elvish language means Grey Pilgrim. So that was the elves' name for him. But, yeah, again, I don't know where Gandalf came from, but... Yeah, but so it was interesting. There's a lot of cool things with Tom. I mean, he yawns and the fire erupts, and he's obviously very powerful. And in the book, he puts the ring on. He takes the ring from Frodo and puts on. He doesn't disappear. He doesn't get corrupted by it. It literally has zero effect on him.
Weird.
And he had that whole line about, I was here when the first tree grew. I was here when the first raindrop fell. Like, he's been around. He's like this ancient deity in Middle-earth, and it's just such a weird character. But... yeah, I thought they did good with him.
Yeah. Like, At first I thought it was just another side quest, another goofy character. Because how many new characters did we get introduced to this episode that seem inconsequential? Like, who did Isildur and Arondir meet? And then who did Nori meet? It's like, I thought it was another one of those at first.
No, yeah. Tom's a good one, but... we did. The whole store thing, I don't care about any of that. The ents we met different humans. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. But, yeah, so the ents, they look dope. I thought they did a really good job with them. Like you said, the design was cool. I like the sound design of them speaking. We yet again see this angry, rageful, vengeful ent who is pissed because her species has been killed by the orcs, just like we saw Treebeard in Two Towers. So I really like the ent scene there.
Yeah, me too. It just looked good. just looked really solid. His face looked so different from any of the ends we saw in Two Towers.
Yeah.
Again, not super invested in that story, but just seeing such a big piece of that lore is always pretty interesting.
Yeah, I will say I enjoyed Arendir talking with them in Elvish and them kind of having that connection because the elves are so, and especially because he's from not Mirkwood, but he's from one of the woods. He's a wood elf. So I really enjoyed that connection there and seeing the elves speaking with the trees because we don't get to see Legolas doesn't speak with the Ents or anything like that in the trilogy. Yeah. So it was cool seeing that connection.
You know, when Galadriel was supposed to choose like a swordsman and archers, I was like a part of me thought she thought of Arendir because they went and had that big battle together, and I was kind of hoping she was going to reach out to at least Arendir to bring him on that quest.
That would have been cool. I liked the fact that we got some new elf characters that were which the first one to die was the only black elf. That's interesting how they did that, but yeah, I think he's gonna rejoin them though. I think Arendir is definitely gonna meet up with them as they're trailing Adar and everything, and we'll get to see them fight together again. But I thought of that, and even though I knew it wasn't gonna happen, I was thinking of Legolas for a second. He's not around by any means during this time, but yeah. No, that was cool. And then that last fight. Oh, which real quick, we saw Galadriel heal that elf with the ring. So that ring has some powers. Yeah. Like when he got shot through the belly with the arrow, and she was trying to apply pressure, and it just straight up healed it. Yeah. So we're getting more info about what that ring can really do.
Yeah, and I'm still just sitting here wondering if that really corrupts. We know the One Ring corrupts, but we didn't hear anything about what happened to the men and the elves and the dwarves and their rings. Like, yeah, Sauron made them, but is it just giving them clean power, or is it corrupting them?
Yeah, well, the men, it corrupted them because that led them to be the Nazgul, and that's why they were like super hesitant to even make it for the men. But yeah, I the same thing though when she's telling Elrond they should do these things, and Elrond's saying no, I'm not listening to the ring. It's like, but is that the right thing to do? Because she's literally gaining clairvoyance. We know she's having visions of the future. And again, is it guiding her in the wrong way? I don't know. I tend to think it's not fully corrupting her because again, we know the elves were able to withstand it. They still wear it in the Third Age. The humans are gone, the dwarves are gone, but the elves are still wearing their rings of power in the Third Age. So I have to think it's a healthy skepticism, but I think it's helping.
Yeah, and it's definitely not black and white. If it's healing your people, I mean, that's not good for Sauron. So there's at the worst case scenario, there's some gray area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and obviously we'll continue to see more of that. Especially, I think next episode. I didn't watch the next Dawn. Did you? Do you have any idea what's coming? Okay, yeah, I would imagine it's going to be a dwarf centric part of the story now because they have to get their rings. So.
Yeah, we didn't see Sauron at all either, so we're gonna see Sauron, Celebrimbor, dwarves.
Yep. They skipped over them this episode, but we did see Adar. So at the very end, again, Galadriel stays back to fight all of the orcs, which we got some dope scenes there. Her kind of falling backwards off her horse, some dope bow and arrow work, a couple dope little knife throws and kill shots. So that was a fun scene to end it. She pulls the bow out that's on flames, and Adar with his glove quenches the flame and basically captures her at the end. And I don't know when it's going to happen, but again, I miss the old Adar. I think that scene would have looked cooler if that was the old Adar standing above her. And he still hasn't broken it through in my brain as the real Adar. But I think we're going to get a really solid conversation from these two next episode about Sauron. Like, I'm very interested to hear that.
Same, because Adar is still kind of iffy on like Sauron's situation of being alive or not. Like he thought he was dead for a while, now he kind of thinks he's alive. So I almost wonder if they're gonna like see eye to eye in some ways. They both want to kill Sauron. Yeah, and I wonder if Elrond's gonna give a shit. I mean, with the way he's been treating her, do you think he's gonna want to go save her?
I think he will. I mean, he saved her during that Barrow wights scene. I think he's still going to be insanely petty about it, but I think he will.
Yeah, he's got to.
Yeah, I think he will. But yeah, again, it's just just get over. I honestly, they're bickering in the first scene. I didn't mind. I kind of liked it. I thought it was good dialogue back and forth. But then, yeah, after the second or third time, I was like, it's getting old.
Yeah.
It's getting old. So, yeah. Well, I guess there wasn't a whole lot else that happened. Do you have anything else to say on the episode?
No, I mean, no reason to bring up Nori's story. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, well, it's pretty short. I guess, well, we'll see what happens with those soldiers hunting down Nori just because they tried to find them and they said, do you know why we wear these masks? And then he said, we'll bring the Dark Wizard and you'll find out soon enough. So that interested me a little bit, but
Yeah.
the Harfoots and Stores themselves, I don't care.
I like that bad guy with the whole golden mask on. He seems pretty threatening and he seems pretty motivated to go capture, whether it's the stranger or Nori or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah, no, we'll see. And I hope to see him without having to fight halflings. I would like to see what they're really about there. So,
Right.
yeah, it should be good. But all right, well, if you don't have any last words on the episode or expectations going forward, anything?
Oh, yeah. I just hope I hope we stay on the plot. I hope it has been so far. Even if this episode was slow, it was very plot oriented, aside from the seal door stuff, but it seems like that's converging. So that's looking good. It seems like everything's pointing to Sauron, and that's a good thing. So I think next episode should be good. I'm excited to see Celebrimbor and Anatar again, and then see what the dwarfs are going to do with their rings. So I think next episode, I think it's going to, I'm looking forward for the rest of it big time.
Yeah. So we're halfway through. We're at the halfway mark of the season. We know the Siege of Eregion still has to happen. I think we're going to get Hill Troll and Ent action. I think we're going to get some epic stuff in these last 4 episodes. I think at least 2 of the episodes are going to be hopefully the best of the series so far. I'm really hoping for that. So yeah, I have some decent expectations for the finish of this, but yeah, I'm looking forward to next week for sure.
How many episodes?
8.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it flew by with the 3-episode premiere.
I know, right? So it's only going to air for 6 weeks. That's odd. I didn't even really think about that. 1, 2. Yeah. Well, it's a bit of a bummer, but you know what? As long as they make it count. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up here. Super short episode, but thank you for joining us. JD, thank you for joining me here tonight. I'm doing this a little late recording and accommodating me there. We will continue to cover this show. We'll continue to cover the comics. We'll continue to cover the nerd news. So just make sure and be there, and we'll be there too. So as always, thank you, and we will see you next time on Why So Sidious, a nerd podcast.